A black cleaning woman at a luxurious, prestigious company is overlooked and disregarded, with no one paying her any attention. However, during a shareholders meeting, she unexpectedly appears, leaving the executives stunned. They laugh mockingly and gaze at her with disdain until she declares something that changes the entire company. Those who had just been laughing loudly now realize they've made a grave mistake. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy. Jamila Thompson stepped into the glittering lobby of Vanguard Innovations, a mop in one hand and a bucket in the other. The polished floors reflected the towering glass walls, and sharp-suited executives strode past her without a second glance. To them, she was invisible, just another cleaning lady blending into the background. But what they didn't know was this: Jamila wasn't here to clean. She was here to reclaim what was hers. What you're about to witness is the incredible story of a woman who refused to be overlooked, who rose from the margins to the top of a corporate empire. Stay tuned, because this tale of strategy, resilience, and justice will leave you speechless. Jamila Thompson adjusted her grip on the mop handle, her dark brown eyes scanning the expansive lobby of Vanguard Innovations. Everything about the space screamed power and wealth: the towering glass panels, the metallic gold fixtures, and the cascading crystal chandelier that seemed to rain down light. To anyone watching, she was just another cleaner, unimportant and unseen. And that was exactly what she wanted. Wearing the crisp green uniform of the janitorial staff, Jamila moved with quiet efficiency, wheeling her cart toward the service elevator. Behind her, the sharp clicks of designer heels and the murmured voices of executives filled the air. They breezed past her, their tailored suits cutting through the space like knives, their focus fixed firmly on themselves. Not one of them paused to acknowledge her presence. Why would they? She was just part of the scenery. But Jamila had a secret. Beneath the calm exterior of a woman pushing a mop and bucket, she was so much more than they could imagine. She wasn't here to clean floors. She was here to learn. Every glance, every whispered conversation, every careless remark by the corporate elite told her something valuable. They couldn't see it, but Jamila was the most dangerous person in the building. She didn't have to shout to command attention, because soon they wouldn't be able to ignore her. This moment had been years in the making. From the outside, Jamila's journey looked like one of struggle. The daughter of a single mother who had worked long hours as a hotel maid to support her family, Jamila grew up learning that respect wasn't handed to people like them. It had to be earned, or better yet, taken. Jamila's life wasn't supposed to lead to this moment. She had been an honor roll student, a standout in her college economics classes, but she had quickly learned that talent and ambition weren't always enough. She had applied for entry-level jobs at Vanguard Innovations after graduating, her dream company, only to be met with polite rejections. Too inexperienced, overqualified, not a good fit. After months of dead ends and countless sleepless nights, Jamila realized she'd have to play the game differently. That's when she came up with her plan, a bold, audacious strategy to infiltrate the company that had overlooked her and seize the very power they thought she could never have. Now, pushing her cart down the marble hallways, Jamila had one goal in mind: to understand the beating heart of Vanguard Innovations. She wasn't just there to observe, she was there to dismantle the system that had tried to shut her out. Stopping outside the executive elevator, Jamila pressed the button and waited. The mirrored doors slid open, and she stepped inside, surrounded by sleek chrome walls. As the elevator ascended, she took a deep breath and glanced at her reflection. Her uniform may have been plain, but her eyes held a fierce determination. When the doors opened again, she stepped out onto the top floor, the executive suite. Here the air felt different, heavier with importance. The carpets were thicker, the art on the walls more abstract and expensive. Through the glass doors of the boardroom, she could see Vanguard's power brokers, the CEO, the CFO, and the rest of the leadership team, huddled around a polished oak table, deep in discussion. Jamila paused, pretending to adjust her cart as she listened to snippets of their conversation. "The merger is going through," one man said with a laugh. "That's another few million in bonuses for us." "Smart move," another chimed in. "Just don't let the employees hear about it. They'll think they deserve a piece of the pie." Jamila clenched her jaw but kept her face impassive. She had heard this kind of talk before. executives who viewed the workers below them as disposable, as nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. It wasn't just arrogance, it was ignorance. They had no idea how fragile their world really was, how close it was to tipping in her favor. They didn't know that Jamila Thompson now held the majority shares in Vanguard Innovations. That, while they were busy counting their bonuses, she had been quietly accumulating power, one calculated move at a time. She wheeled her cart down the hallway, a small smile playing on her lips. For now she would remain invisible. But soon, when the time was right, she would reveal herself, and when she did, everything would change. Jamila spent her first few days at Vanguard Innovations blending into the background. She cleaned quietly, moving from one polished corner of the building to the next, her mop and bucket giving her access to places most employees never thought about. She scrubbed the floors outside of the finance office and listened as two accountants whispered about budget cuts. She cleaned the windows near the marketing department and overheard junior employees venting about unrealistic deadlines. She wiped down the breakroom countertops as interns complained about being overworked and underpaid. Every piece of gossip, every grumble, every sigh of frustration, it all fed into the bigger picture she was building in her mind. But it wasn't just the lower-level employees who caught her attention. The executives, insulated in their glass offices, were just as oblivious to her presence. They spoke openly, their arrogance shielding them from the idea that someone like her might be paying attention. "They want hazard pay," scoffed one VP during a hallway conversation with the COO. "For what? Showing up on time, please." "People just don't understand how hard it is to run a company," the COO replied, sipping his overpriced espresso. "If they spent less time whining and more time working, maybe they'd get somewhere." Jamila clenched her teeth, resisting the urge to snap back. She knew better. This wasn't the time to tip her hand. These were the people she was up against, people who lived in a bubble of privilege, detached from the workers who kept their empire running. But what they didn't realize was that the woman cleaning their floors had a sharper mind than all of them combined. One evening, after the office had emptied out, Jamila stayed late. The building was quiet, the hum of air conditioning the only sound as she wheeled her cart down the executive corridor. Stopping outside the CEO's office, she hesitated, her heart pounding. She glanced around to ensure she was alone before pulling a small notebook from her pocket. Inside were her notes, carefully gathered over weeks of observation. Names, dates, conversations, patterns, everything that would help her identify the weaknesses in their leadership and the opportunities to change the company's direction. She flipped through the pages, her mind racing with ideas. It wasn't just about taking control, it was about what she would do with that control. She envisioned a company where workers were valued, where transparency replaced secrecy, where the power didn't sit solely at the top. Her fingers brushed against another sheet of paper tucked into the notebook, the official documentation proving her majority stake in Vanguard Innovations. She had spent years accumulating shares, working quietly through intermediaries to ensure her name stayed off the radar. Now, she was ready to use them. The next day, Jamila found herself cleaning the boardroom windows as the executives held their morning meeting. She moved deliberately, keeping her head down while listening closely. "The shareholders' meeting is next week," announced the CEO, his tone confident. "Everything's in place for us to present the merger as a done deal. It's going to be a win across the board." "Especially for us," added the CFO with a grin. "Those bonuses are going to look nice in our accounts." Jamila almost laughed out loud. Their confidence was astounding. They thought they were untouchable, but they were days away from finding out just how wrong they were. As the meeting ended and the executives filed out, Nathan Pierce, the CEO, paused near her. His gaze flicked over her for a brief moment, a mixture of indifference and condescension. "You missed a spot," he said, gesturing vaguely toward the window before walking away. Jamila's grip on the spray bottle tightened, but she forced herself to stay calm. Let him enjoy his arrogance for now, she thought. He had no idea that the woman he had just dismissed would soon be his boss. As she finished her work and wheeled her cart back to the storage room, Jamila felt a surge of determination. The time for observation was coming to an end. She had learned all she needed to know about how Vanguard operated and how its leadership thought. Now it was time to act. Back in her small apartment that night, Jamila spread out her notes across the kitchen table. She reviewed her plans, fine-tuning every detail. The shareholders' meeting was her moment, the stage she had been building toward for years. It wouldn't just be a reveal, it would be a reckoning. She closed her notebook with a decisive snap, her heart pounding with anticipation. For too long she had been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. But that was about to change. The next morning, she would return to Vanguard Innovations one last time in her janitor's uniform. By the end of the day, however, she wouldn't just be a part of the scenery. She would be the one rewriting the story. The day of the shareholders' meeting arrived. Jamila woke up early, the weight of her plan pressing on her, but she welcomed it. It was the kind of weight that came with purpose, a reminder of the stakes. This wasn't just about her. It was about the people who had been overlooked, undervalued, and silenced by the system she was about to disrupt. Dressed in her janitor's uniform, she arrived at Vanguard Innovations as usual, wheeling her cart through the pristine lobby. The executives were already gathered in the boardroom, their laughter and confidence spilling into the corridor. It was a familiar scene, one that Jamila had observed countless times. But today, she wasn't here to clean their windows. She was here to shatter their illusions. As the shareholders began to file into the meeting room, Jamila quietly stepped aside, blending into the background as she always had. She watched as the room filled with men and women in tailored suits, their conversations buzzing with excitement about the company's future. They were here to hear about the proposed merger, a deal that would consolidate power at the top while leaving the workers at the bottom with even less. When the meeting officially began, Nathan Pierce, the CEO, stood at the head of the table, radiating confidence. He opened with his usual charm, welcoming the shareholders and setting the stage for what he believed would be a routine session. This merger, he began, is not just an opportunity for growth but a testament to our leadership and vision. We've worked tirelessly to ensure Vanguard Innovations remains at the forefront of the industry. Today we solidify that position. The room erupted into polite applause. Nathan smiled, basking in their approval. He motioned for the CFO to present the financial breakdown, and as the PowerPoint flickered to life, the mood in the room shifted to one of focused attention. Jamila waited for her moment. As the CFO droned on about revenue projections and cost-cutting strategies, Jamila stepped forward, her janitor's uniform stark against the sea of tailored suits. At first, no one noticed her presence. She positioned herself near the head of the table, her posture straight, her gaze unwavering. Then, she cleared her throat. The sound cut through the CFO's presentation like a knife. Every head turned toward her, confusion etched on their faces. Nathan frowned, his annoyance clear. "Excuse me," he said, his voice tinged with impatience. "We're in the middle of a meeting. Can this wait?" "No," Jamila replied calmly, her voice steady and firm. "It can't." Nathan's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, Jamila reached into her pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. She placed it on the table in front of him, her movements deliberate. "What is this?" Nathan demanded, his tone sharp. Jamila folded her hands in front of her, meeting his gaze without flinching. "It's documentation," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "As of last month, I acquired the majority shares of Vanguard Innovations." The room went silent. Nathan stared at her, his face a mask of disbelief. He grabbed the envelope, yanking out the documents and scanning them. His hands shook as he read the words, his lips moving silently as if hoping to find an error. This can't be real," he stammered. "It's very real," Jamila replied. "I now own 51% of this company." The shock rippled through the room like an earthquake. Executives exchanged panicked glances. Some of the shareholders leaned forward, craning their necks to get a better look at the documents. The CFO looked like he might faint. Nathan's voice was barely a whisper. "How?" Jamila allowed a small, knowing smile to curve her lips. "While you were busy cutting costs and ignoring the people who make this company run, I was buying shares. Quietly. Strategically. And now the power you've taken for granted sits with me." The weight of her words hung in the air. Nathan slammed the documents onto the table, his face red with fury. "This is a hostile takeover. You think you can just walk in here and—" Jamila held up a hand, cutting him off. "This isn't hostile, Mr. Pierce. This is justice. For years you've exploited the workers who built this company, treating them like expendable tools while lining your own pockets. That ends today." The room erupted into chaos. Executives scrambled to comprehend what was happening. Nathan's voice rose above the din, demanding answers, but the shareholders were no longer paying attention to him. They were looking at Jamila, their faces a mix of shock and intrigue. "Let me be clear," Jamila continued, her voice commanding attention. "I'm not here to dismantle this company. I'm here to rebuild it. From now on, Vanguard Innovations will prioritize fairness, transparency, and accountability. We will invest in our people, not just our profits." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Some of the shareholders nodded, clearly impressed by her poise and vision. Nathan, however, was far from convinced. "You're out of your depth," he sneered. "Running a company isn't as simple as pushing a mop." Jamila raised an eyebrow, unbothered by his insult. "And yet, here I am, running the company you thought you controlled. Funny how that works." For the rest of the meeting, Jamila laid out her plan for Vanguard's future. She spoke with the clarity and conviction of someone who had spent years preparing for this moment. She outlined initiatives to improve working conditions, increase diversity in leadership, and create pathways for employees to share in the company's success. By the time she finished, the room was quiet. The shareholders exchanged glances, many of them clearly impressed. Nathan sat stiffly in his chair, his jaw clenched, his face pale. For the first time, he had nothing to say. As the meeting adjourned, Jamila gathered her papers and stood tall. She glanced at Nathan one last time, her expression calm but resolute. "Power doesn't come from titles or suits, Mr. Pierce," she said. "It comes from understanding the people who make this company what it is. And that's something you never cared to learn." With that, she turned and walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind a room full of people who would never underestimate her again. As Jamila walked out of the boardroom, her heart pounded. She had just done what so many thought was impossible, yet she remained calm and composed. The weight of what she had just declared settled over her like a heavy but empowering cloak. The power shift wasn't just symbolic, it was real. Now the work began. Jamila returned to her modest office, a space that had once been an unused storage room. She hadn't moved to the executive suite yet, choosing instead to stay grounded where she started. She sat at the desk, her laptop humming softly, reviewing reports that outlined the company's priorities, challenges, and opportunities. The numbers confirmed what she already knew: Vanguard Innovations was profitable, but at a cost to its people. High turnover, morale issues, and stagnating wages had eaten away at its foundation. Her first step was a town hall meeting, something the previous leadership had avoided. Jamila wanted to hear directly from the employees, from every department and every level. She didn't just want their feedback, she needed it. So she sent out the email herself, bypassing the usual communications channels, inviting all employees to meet with her in the auditorium that Friday. When Friday arrived, the auditorium was packed. The atmosphere buzzed with curiosity, skepticism, and a faint sense of hope. Many employees had already heard about the dramatic boardroom takeover. Whispers of "Did you hear the janitor is now the boss?" circulated among the crowd. As Jamila stepped onto the stage, the chatter quieted. She stood confidently in front of them, no longer in her janitor's uniform, but not in a traditional power suit either. She wore a simple but elegant dress, a reflection of her grounded yet determined approach. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady. "You probably know me as the woman who cleaned your offices. For some of you, I'm the woman who replaced the paper towels when they ran out in the break room. For others, I'm just that face you passed in the hallway without a second glance." There was a ripple of unease in the audience, but Jamila pressed on. "What you didn't know is that for the last 5 years, I've also been quietly learning this company from the inside out. Not from a corner office, but from where real work happens on the ground floor." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Today, I'm not just your CEO, I'm your advocate, because I've seen firsthand what this company has done right, and more importantly, what it's done wrong. And together, we're going to fix it." The room was silent for a moment, and then a young man in the back raised his hand hesitantly. Jamila smiled, nodding for him to speak. "Do you really think you can change things here?" he asked, his tone a mix of doubt and hope. Jamila's smile widened. "I don't just think so, I know so, but I can't do it alone. Change isn't something one person imposes from the top. It's something we create together. That's why I'm here to listen to you. Your voices matter. Over the next hour, employees shared stories of feeling unheard, underappreciated, and overworked. Jamila took notes diligently, responding thoughtfully and promising transparency. By the end of the session, the mood in the room had shifted. Skepticism gave way to cautious optimism. Behind the scenes, however, the old guard wasn't going down without a fight. Nathan Pierce and his allies had spent years consolidating their power, and they weren't about to let Jamila unravel it so easily. Nathan, though humiliated in the boardroom, began rallying his network of loyalists within the company, spreading doubt about Jamila's ability to lead. "She's not qualified," he whispered to his inner circle. "Just because she bought some shares doesn't mean she can run a corporation. This place is going to collapse under her." Jamila, aware of the brewing dissent, remained focused. She knew Nathan's type, arrogant, entitled, and resistant to change. His attempts to undermine her only strengthened her resolve. She began assembling her own team, promoting employees who had been overlooked for years, individuals who understood the company's struggles because they had lived them. One of her key appointments was Tara Nyan, a talented operations manager who had been stuck in middle management despite her innovative ideas. Tara had once proposed an employee profit-sharing plan that Nathan dismissed outright. Jamila not only resurrected the plan but made Tara its leader. "Tara," Jamila said during their first meeting, "you've been underestimated for too long. I see what you're capable of. Let's show the world." Tara's eyes lit up with determination. "Let's do it." Within weeks, changes began rippling through Vanguard Innovations. Employee town halls became a regular occurrence. Policies were revised to include better wages, mental health support, and opportunities for advancement. Jamila's profit-sharing program inspired loyalty among employees, who felt for the first time that their hard work would be rewarded. Even the janitorial staff, Jamila's former peers, saw improvements. They received raises, upgraded equipment, and more respect from the rest of the staff. Jamila made it a point to visit them personally, reminding them that their work was the backbone of the company. Nathan Pierce, however, refused to adapt. As Jamila's initiatives began gaining traction, he launched a smear campaign, claiming her changes were financially reckless and would ruin the company. But his efforts backfired when financial reports revealed that Vanguard's profits had actually increased under Jamila's leadership, thanks to improved employee performance and reduced turnover. At the next shareholders' meeting, Nathan attempted to challenge Jamila's authority publicly, accusing her of being out of her depth. But Jamila, armed with data and the support of her employees, dismantled his arguments with poise and precision. "Out of my depth," she said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "The only thing I'm out of is patience for leadership that ignores its people." The shareholders erupted in applause, leaving Nathan seething in his chair. By the end of the year, Vanguard Innovations had transformed. The company wasn't just profitable, it was thriving. Employees were happier. Turnover rates had plummeted, and the company's reputation as an ethical and innovative leader in the industry soared. Jamila stood in her new office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She could still see the janitors wheeling their carts below, the heartbeat of the building. Her journey wasn't just about proving herself. It was about proving that power wielded with empathy and respect could change the world. As she gazed out the window, Jamila smiled. The fight wasn't over, but she was ready for whatever came next. After all, she had started at the bottom, and she'd risen not by playing their game but by rewriting the rules entirely. Months had passed since Jamila Washington's unprecedented rise to the helm of Vanguard Innovations. The company had become the talk of the corporate world, not just for its meteoric transformation, but for the unorthodox leadership style that drove it. Jamila's story was everywhere. From magazine covers to talk shows, she was heralded as a pioneer, a disruptor, and a visionary. But for Jamila, the accolades mattered less than the work still ahead. One morning, Jamila sat in her office, the polished wood desk a stark contrast to the cleaning cart she had once pushed through the halls. She had traded the mop for spreadsheets, the janitor's uniform for tailored suits, but her perspective remained grounded. On her desk was a worn photo of her late mother, a constant reminder of why she had embarked on this journey. Her assistant, Mia, knocked on the door and entered with a hesitant smile. "Ms. Washington, your 2 p.m. meeting is ready." It's with the employee task force. Jamila stood, her confidence unwavering. Thank you, Mia. Let's go. The meeting was held in a collaborative space Jamila had designed, a stark departure from the sterile boardrooms of the past. Comfortable chairs surrounded a round table, and sunlight streamed through open windows. Sitting at the table were employees from every level: administrative assistants, mid-level managers, warehouse workers, and, yes, even janitors. Good afternoon, everyone, Jamila began, her tone warm but purposeful. I wanted to meet today to discuss the progress of our initiatives, and more importantly, to hear from you. Are we moving in the right direction? What can we do better? One by one, employees shared their thoughts. A warehouse supervisor spoke about improved morale since the introduction of profit-sharing bonuses. A janitor praised the new safety equipment that made their job easier. A marketing associate mentioned how the open-door policy with leadership had fostered a new culture of trust. When it was the young intern with the braided hair's turn to speak, she hesitated, glancing nervously around the room. Jamila caught her eye and smiled reassuringly. Go ahead, Jamila encouraged. Your voice matters here. The intern nodded. I just wanted to say thank you. Before you became CEO, I felt like no one saw me. But now I feel like I belong. Like what I do actually matters. A ripple of agreement ran through the room, and Jamila felt a lump rise in her throat. She nodded. You do matter. All of you do. This company isn't just about profits or products, it's about people. And together, we're proving that success doesn't have to come at the expense of dignity. The changes at Vanguard didn't stop at internal policies. Under Jamila's guidance, the company launched a community outreach initiative aimed at investing in underserved neighborhoods. They partnered with local schools, offering scholarships to promising students and hosting job training workshops. Jamila ensured the focus remained on equity and access, breaking down barriers she had once faced herself. One of the most significant moments came during a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new community center funded by Vanguard. As Jamila handed oversized scissors to a young girl from the neighborhood, she saw herself in the child's wide, curious eyes. The girl smiled up at her and said, "One day, I want to be like you." Jamila knelt to meet her gaze. "You can be anything you want to be," she said, her voice steady with conviction. "And if anyone tells you otherwise, you make them see the truth." Despite her triumphs, Jamila's journey wasn't without challenges. Nathan Pierce, the ousted CEO, attempted to stir up trouble through legal battles and media appearances. He painted Jamila as inexperienced and out of her depth. But her results spoke louder than his accusations. Every time Nathan tried to undermine her, the data was there: soaring profits, employee satisfaction at an all-time high, and a public perception of Vanguard as a trailblazer. Let him talk, Jamila told her leadership team one afternoon. We're too busy building a legacy to entertain his bitterness. As the year came to a close, Vanguard hosted its first ever company-wide gala, an event to celebrate the people who made its success possible. Employees from every department, from janitors to executives, mingled in the grand hall of a downtown venue. The atmosphere buzzed with joy and camaraderie. Jamila took the stage, her presence commanding yet approachable. The room fell silent as she began to speak. When I started here, I was just another face in the crowd, she said, her voice carrying both strength and vulnerability. I was invisible to most people, and for a while, I believed that was all I would ever be. But today, I stand before you as proof that visibility starts from within, that the power to change the world is in each of us. She gestured to the crowd. This company is not about one person, it's about all of us. Together, we've proven that success doesn't have to mean stepping on others to rise. It means lifting each other up. The applause was thunderous, but what moved Jamila most was the sight of her mother's photo displayed on the screen behind her. It was a reminder of where she came from and the promise she had fulfilled. Later that night, as the gala wound down, Jamila stood by a window overlooking the city skyline. The young intern approached her, hesitating. "Ms. Washington, can I ask you something?" "Of course," Jamila replied, turning with a warm smile. "How did you do it? How did you go from where you started to this?" Jamila thought for a moment. "I never forgot where I came from," she said. "And I never let anyone define what I could be. The world will try to put you in a box, don't let it. Write your own story." The intern nodded, her expression filled with determination. "I'll remember that." As the lights dimmed and the venue emptied, Jamila stayed behind for a moment of quiet reflection. The road ahead was still long, and there would always be challenges. But tonight, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had rewritten the rules, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed. Jamila Washington had proven that power wasn't just about wealth or status. It was about resilience, vision, and the courage to demand more, for yourself and for others. And this was only the beginning. And now, join the movement for justice. Subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and make these stories a part of your daily life. Together we can create change.